Okay, so what I've suggested here is let's play around with an example where we're going to maintain something. This is a familiar scenario to us, right? That's section current enrollment in our university, Ironwood University database, right? If you're not quite familiar, again, just as a quick reminder, let's have a look here. Okay, this is that one where we have our enrollment table, right, between student and section. Okay, for every student we enroll in a given section, it's a composite primary key. We probably want to update this section current enrollment figure, so we'll know how many students we have in the section. Denormalize data, one of the possible uses of a DML trigger like this. Why do we need 3 triggers?
Moving from 3 tables?
Well, yeah, there's 3 different actions we could do, right? We could insert a new enrollment record, delete an enrollment record, student drops out, right, or whatever, or update. Maybe they transfer from one section to another, okay? In all 3 cases, it's going to affect this denormalized data. So we need to respond to all 3 possible events, okay? So let me just ask before I get into writing code, what table will actually own the triggers? When we create these triggers, we create them on which table? Which of the 2 tables, the section or the enrollment table?
Section.
Ah, that's a very common first thought, because that's where we want to update information, but that's not the triggering event. The table is going to change, that change is going to prompt us to modify this, is the enrollment table. So the triggers will actually belong to enrollment, right?
That's
when we insert a new enrollment record, that's when we would update this, and so on. Okay? All right. So let's come over here. I think I have, yeah, I just ran the query. I'm going to run it again because I couldn't, just to refresh my Ironwood database. Okay. So if I come down, find it here in the list. Oh, I'm not in mine, I'm in somebody else's. Sorry if that's yours, no offense. Get out of my database. Okay, all right, so here we are. So I'm ready to start working in these tables. I had it a second ago. And there we are. Right? So as we said, it's going to be on the actual enrollment table. So I often find it helpful to just kind of at least open this up so I can see the different fields that are involved. So we're creating a trigger, right? Now in terms of that naming convention, as I said, what I usually do is it's going to belong to a given table, so I'll use the name, well, I could use a university enrollment, but that's a little redundant, I find, in this database, university in front of everything. So I'll just call it enrollment. Oh, sorry. And then we're going to make 3 of them eventually for the 3 actions. So insert, right? So as a naming convention, that kind of helps guarantee that I won't accidentally create 2 of the same name, right? So the next keyword is, sorry, kind of typed it before I gave you a chance to answer, on, okay? So obviously it's on a given table. This time I have to do the full name. And what's my action, or my keyword for the action? After, right? 4, I could type 4 and it would work for backwards compatibility, but they encourage us to use after because they'll eventually drop that, I guess, is the plan. So after.
Wait, what would 4 do differently? Because 4 is what you showed us in the slideshow.
Yeah, well, that's because those are old examples. They functions basically the same, but we should, going forward, use after instead. Okay? After insert. So that's basically it. And then, as usual, as, and I like to put beginning and ending. Okay. So we think about what's going to happen here. We know we're going to insert. So we're going to have a inserted temporary table that will have the same columns as the actual enrollment table, right? So we'll see a student ID, section ID, enrollment grade. Which of those 3 fields are we really concerned about here? What does I need to know in order to go and update that denormalized data about the current enrollment in a given section. Let me ask this. Do I care of the student ID? I do? Yeah? Do I care whether it's Sally or Billy that's been enrolled in the section in terms of maintaining a count of how many people there are? No, I don't really care who it is. Just it's a student, right? I should say before we go further, there's two approaches to writing any trigger like this. You could write it so that you can handle one or more records at a time, like we talked about, you know, you can delete multiple records and so on. You can insert multiple records. But the other assumption is following the approach that we're using for our standard stored procedures. Remember, we're setting them up to insert, update, and delete one record at a time. I'm going to do the same thing in how I write these example triggers. So we're going to assume that we're going to only insert one record at a time. It changes or simplifies in many ways the code that we're going to write. Okay? So it's a good way to learn that, first of all. I mean, you can actually, it's not that much more complicated to do a query that handles multiple inserts at the same time, but sometimes those queries can get pretty hairy. So easier to take it a step at a time, and we'll just keep it simple. We'll go on the assumption we're inserting, updating, or deleting one record at a time. So just knowing that, I don't really care about the student ID. I don't care who it is I'm enrolling into the section, adding to the section, because it's an insert. That's what this trigger is. I don't really care about the grade either, but I am going to need to know what section ID it is. So I can go to that section and increase the number of students that are now enrolled in the section, right? So I could use a variable, okay? You can get away without having to create variables, but I find it often easier to understand what you're doing if you start off that way. So I'll declare a variable. Now for the variable name, I'll follow my usual approach. Since it's going to hold a section ID, might as well call it @section ID. And for the data type for the variable, I might as well make it match the field, big int. Right? Now, how am I going to get the value? I have no parameters, but we have, what do we know here? What are those temporary system tables called in an insert trigger? Inserted, that's right. In fact, watch this. If I go select section ID from, look at that, inserted shows right up in IntelliSense. Okay? It only does because I'm in an actual insert trigger. So I can get the section ID, but of course I don't want to actually return, right? In fact, you'll be told if you try to do a select that returns data inside of a trigger. But I can use it to assign the value, right? So that's where I'll get the value for my variable. And just for those that like to do it line by line, I'll lay it out like that. Okay, I really should have some comments in here. Get the value you need. Okay, so now I know what section I'm inserting a new enrollment record into, so I'm adding a student into the section. So I have basically everything I need now to go and update the section current enrollment for that one particular section. Update the related data. So that'll be an update command. I'm going to be lazy and let the tool help me with that. So I'm updating university section. Oh, did I not? I clicked cancel, I guess. Or close. Okay. So I'm updating section. I'm going to be updating the section current enrollment, identifying or filtering by the section ID. So here's how I would let this tool help me as much as it can, right? I'll take section ID out of the output, add it in as a filter, @section ID. It just helps me write the code a little bit. And as I change this now to change the type to an update, then it just modifies it here so it's set section current enrollment equals, right?
Where did you change the type on? Was it the actual
I just right clicked in the open area at top and changed type. Okay. I'll have to make my font a little smaller. All right, now, in terms of what value I'm going to give the section current enrollment, you can actually these days go plus equals, right? So that takes a given value and then adds to it. In the old days, I had to put equals section current enrollment plus. How much am I going to add? Remember, we're going on the assumption that we're only ever inserting one at a time. So this is pretty easy. 1, right? I'll add 1 to the section current enrollment. Okay, later on, if you were working with, say, inventory levels and you have a quantity, well, then you've got to actually figure out what the quantity is and add it, right? But in this case, it's a simple example. We're only adding 1 student at a time, so it's just plus 1. The where clause, of course, identifies what section, okay, we're making this change to. And that should take care of it, right? So that should be my insert. Let me execute to create that trigger. Now, where did it go? If I come over here and just do a quick refresh, if I come down to the enrollment table, there it is. So under triggers, notice I'm under the table, okay, there's my enrollment insert trigger. And of course I can always just click modify and it'll bring it up in a new window as an alter, right? Because I said to modify. So now it gives me the same code I wrote, including all my comments and everything, and away I go. Okay. So that's pretty good for that. Now, how much time do I have left? Not much. Let's just talk about the obviously easy reverse process is the delete, right? In fact, it's so easy I can copy this one. Maybe I'll make a new query window, paste it in, and we'll just quickly change it from, change the name to enrollment delete, but the event, of course, is after delete. I still need to know the section ID. Okay. Again, I'm not going to care about the actual ID of the student who left the section. That's really immaterial. I just need to know what section I need to change the current enrollment for. So it's again the section ID, but of course there is no inserted temporary table in the delete. Surprise, surprise. It's deleted right there in IntelliSense. It comes up. Okay, so I have the deleted temporary table. I can get the section ID out of that. Basically, updating the same thing. The only thing is, of course, instead of adding 1, I'm going to subtract 1, right? Minus equals 1 for the same thing. So that was a nice, easy one. It's almost the same as just reverse whatever logic you're doing, right? Okay. Last but not least is the update. Now, this is the one, it's a little bit more interesting. If we go back and look at the diagram again, if you were updating the enrollment table, well, there's only 3 fields here, right? So let's talk about it. What if you're changing the student ID? Do we care in terms of modifying our section current enrollment? So let's say we accidentally added Sally, right, into the section. Oh, no, sorry, that was Samantha, not Sally. Go in there, we'll modify the student ID, put it to the right student. Did we change the enrollment? No, right? The grade, if you modify the grade, they go from an A to an A+. Doesn't change the enrollment, does it? Okay, so what things might change the enrollment? Well, if they change the section, maybe they transferred from one section to another, okay? Then definitely we need to know then. So we're going to need to know both the before and after value of the section ID, right? Okay. So it's going to be similar, so I can start by pasting in my same code. Update. After update. Okay, but I need to know the section ID, the old and the new, right? So you might even call them new and old if you want. The new section ID and old section ID. Right? Now, the new one comes from our inserted table. Right? You remember how we have the 2 system tables here this time. The deleted has the old version of the record. The inserted has the new version. So the new section ID will come from inserted. and I could just basically copy and paste this and get the old section ID from deleted. Okay. Now, updating the related data. Well, obviously, if they've transferred from one section to another, we might have to update both. Okay? But you know, before we even do that, maybe they updated it, but they didn't really change the value. Remember, we talked about that. So I could use my if updated, but you know, odds are it's going to be true, right? Because our update procedures always call for it. Is that what TV show is that ringtone from there?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
Lost my vote.
Okay. All right. So what I might do is wrap all these updates in an if. Because really, if the section ID didn't change, okay, then I don't care. It could be we're here in this update because they were just modifying the grade, right? Bumped up from an A to an A+. Good for you, but I don't care in terms of the enrollment. Okay, so if, so I can compare if the old section ID and the new section ID match each other or don't match each other, right? So I could write that in a few different ways. I can say if it's not true that at old section ID equals the at new section ID. Some students are used to seeing that. You can also do it this way, right? You can just say not equal this way, right? You like that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, you know you can also do this, right? That's another way to write not equals. The two greater than?
Did you get rid of the exclamation point too?
Oh yeah, sorry. That's another way to write not equals. There's all different ways. They're listed in that PowerPoint I gave you. But I guess most students are more comfortable with this, so we'll go that way. So the old section ID does not equal the new section, then hey, it changed. So now we have to take action, right? Otherwise, then maybe they just updated the mark or changed the student ID, whatever. So then, okay, update as required. So basically our first one is for the old section, right? Oh, the old one, they're removed from it. Okay, I'll do it this way, save me some typing, right? So we'll increase the enrollment in the new section. And we'll decrease the enrollment in the old section. Just going to put my curly braces in here. They might not look like curly braces, but they logically function the same way. So if the section is changed, then we'll update taking one out of the old section, adding one to the new section. Right? But you know, if the section didn't change, then we don't have to do anything. Now the only thing in each of these I forgot, and I see we're out of time, I often put the set on no count on, just so that you don't get extra messages about records affected from the trigger itself. Sorry. I normally put that at the top of every trigger. Now I ran those already, so I'll just change them to alter. Execute that one again. Execute that one again. And I haven't done this one yet, so there we go. Okay, so I have the 3 triggers. So we're out of time, but the next thing to do would be to actually create some tests, okay? And we'll do that next to make sure they actually work. All right? Well, thank you for your time today, and we'll see you on Thursday.